So we're on Daf Nun Aleph, and just a little bit from yesterday. Just a little bit about the story. I'm not, the story from Bar Kapara needs explanation. All the stories over there that
Bar Kapara
Bar
was like
Kapara, I think so, maybe, maybe more like a Talmud Chaver, like they were they contemporary, they colleagues. But it could be that by the wedding over there, he wanted to make him happy by his son's wedding. That was the purpose of all that. Also, not only the case before, but the other cases, but this case also. And maybe the daughter, I didn't cop that. Maybe the point was that he even told the daughter, "I'm going to make your father happy tomorrow." And son-in-law means maybe it was that daughter's husband. I didn't cop yesterday that the daughter and Ben Elisha might have been that was his husband and wife, and they were the ones who were in on it. That and on the contrary, he invited him to the wedding in order that he should cause Rebbe to dance and. And he asked him three questions. The Maral talks about Toeva and Tevel and Zima, all the Lashonis about Arias. The Maral talks about it, maybe about relations, the difference between marital relations and these kind of relations that have nothing to do with marriage. These are all Hevel, these are all vanity. If it's going to be all of them, there's one talking about a relative, it means a mother and daughter. And the other one's talking about Mishkav Zohar and Mishkav Behema. So the point was that all of those are not in contrast to marriage. What marriage is supposed to be, there's a unity.
That you wouldn't want to say at a wedding. I mean, isn't it?
He was talking about. He didn't talk about it. He talked about the word, the translation of the word To'eva, Tevel, Tavlim. So just saying that those things are far removed from what it's supposed to be. But the fact that he got Rebbe to dance, that was maybe that was the plan in the first place. But at the end, it seems like. Ben Alasa, if my theory is right.
Before you already said anything.
Right. So, and I didn't have that. That's probably what Ben Alasa brought him in for. Why? And that maybe the daughter means the daughter and the son-in-law. Not that it was a daughter and a different son-in-law. It was the daughter's husband. I didn't have that yesterday. What?
No, it's a dead.
They left it then because they didn't like the way he did it. Like it was too much. Really. It was too much. 3 times, whatever. It was too much. Maybe something like that. But in the beginning, it does say that he's the one who invited him. And I just figured that that's pretty mistaber that it says that first he spoke to the daughter and said, "I'll make your father laugh dance tomorrow." And then the son-in-law invited him. I would imagine that maybe it has to do that was the son-in-law's husband. That she was the daughter who was the wife of Ben Allah. So then they didn't like it and they left. But just a theory. I don't know for sure. The last Gemara didn't know how to read, and so it started again. Just we got the idea yesterday. Just the reading of the Brisa is not clear. And was not clear to me yesterday. So it says the last remutza. The Mishnah said that when someone says, "I'm not going to," you made an issue from a tafshil, it does not include the last remutza. What is last remutza? Shmuel said it's a certain kind of a pumpkin, a certain kind, certain type. And for some reason, even when you cook it, it's not called a tafshil. That would depend on whatever it is. Even when you cook it, it's not included in the regular tafshil. The Rashi thought that it means that it was made on remets. Remutza means it was made on remets, which is hot ashes. And that's the reason why it's not called a tafshil, because it was not made as a cooked food. It was made more on the hot ashes. But the more it disproves him, because you find that las remutza is a kind of a dalas, it's a kind of a pumpkin. And if he's arrived from this brisa, there's a Mishnah that is also, it says in the Mishnah in Kalayim that there's a dalas remutza if it's considered a Kalayim with a different kind of a dalas, that's what the brisa is bringing down. But let's read the brisa over here. The dalas aram is he dalas from mitzvahs. It's the same thing. That the Armenian, maybe Aramean pumpkin is the same as the Las HaMitzvahs, and both of them, and not both of them, but that pumpkin which is called both Aramis and Mitzvahs, climbing my Yavanis, climbing my Ramutza. There's a Las Yavanis and there's a Las Ramutza, and this Las Mitzvahs Aramis, it is Kalayim if you plant it together with the Greek. It's also kind of the Las, kind of a pumpkin, or if you plant it together with the las remutza, it's klein. So obviously you're not talking about the las which was baked on ashes. That's on hot ashes. That's not the point. The point is it's a kind of a las. So the Gemara proves that las remutza is a kind of a las. It's not a species. It's not the fact not how it was cooked. So again, that's how to read it. We got the idea yesterday that that's the point he wants to prove, that it doesn't mean remets, but it means it's a type of the las, and that's the proof. And the Gemara really tears, so the Gemara disproves that Rashi was wrong, that it doesn't mean that it was baked on remets. Okay, that was good for yesterday's Gemara.
The word remets.
Remets means hot ashes.
Where is the word?
No,
The whole thing is from Mutza. That's all. That was.
So what's the Havamina? What's the Havamina? Why does it come into our Mishnah?
because it's saying that it's not
must be a
included.
method of cooking.
No, so yesterday we said, or maybe we said now today, that for some reason, when you cook at Las Mutza, whatever Las Mutza is, it still is not, when you say a dish, a cooked dish, you're not gonna mean that. Why? Whatever reason. Whatever reason, the way it comes out, other delos is different punk is different, but when you would cook this kind of a particular kind of a delas, people wouldn't call it a cooked dish. Why? I guess if people see it, we wouldn't have the question. It has to do with this particular kind of delas, maybe. Okay, then that the one's happy. The one's happy that it means a kind of a pumpkin, not the way that it was made. Okay, the Mishnah continues. Now, really, this Mishnah we had already, so it's not. So you have to erase the words Mishnah over here. Erase these words, and then everything's so simple. Somebody at the bottom has plia. It's not such a plia. It just means that the printer made a mistake and wrote it again as a Mishnah, even though we had it already before. So just take away this Mishnah, block it out. It's just a Dibra Maskal that is bringing down the Mishnah which we had already before. You also can block out the Gemara because this is this. It's like a Dibra Maskal that it always has. It has quoting the Mishnah we had already before. This is in the beginning of the parak. It said difference between Ma'aseh Kedera and the Yorod Kedera. So the Mishnah had said, "I know them in Ma'aseh Kedera and also Elam in Ma'aseh Retachta." But Amakonim Yorod Kedera, Shani Toim.
Computer went off.
So it's this differentiating between the term of Ma'aseh Kedera and Yorod Kedera. Ma'aseh Kedera only refers to Ma'aseh Retachta, which it could mean something that's boiled, or if we're going to call it porridge, whatever it's going to be. A certain thing is referred to as Ma'aseh Kedera. But the word Yorod Kedera, anything that goes into a pot, that means anything that goes into the pot. So it has to do with terminology. It depends on the time and place. And in the Mishnah's time and place, Ma'aseh Kedera meant one thing particularly, and Yorod Kedera meant anything that went into the pot. So whatever was cooked in the pot, whatever goes into the pot, that's all included. He said, I'm mastering Yorod Kedera includes everything that's made in the pot. If he said Ma'aseh Kedera, it only refers to a certain kind of a food. And the
It could
Bryce,
be made in anything, in any way. Could have been baked, could have been
no,
raised. No, it had to also be in a pot.
yes, it's made in a pot, but it's only one kind of a food that's made in a pot, and that's what Ma'aseh Kedera refers to. Let's say Ma'aseh Kedera, let's say it refers to mazonos, it refers to kinds of cereals, porridge, and Yorod Kedera, and Ma'aseh Kedera wouldn't include cooking potatoes or meat or spaghetti. That's not called Ma'aseh Kedera, maybe. That's what the Ma'aseh Kedera only refers to a certain kind of a food. But Yorod Kedera says anything that goes into the pot. So that's the terminology, what he meant. And many things coming up now. Today's Gemara is all about what certain terms mean and doesn't apply nowadays because you have to find out how people speak today. Tanya, I know the man Yorod Kedera. Omar also be Yorod Leilfish, Shekva Yorod Kedera, Kodem Yorod Leilfish. So Ilfis and Kedera are two kinds of cooking utensils. One might be a pot, one might be a pan. I don't know. I can't say exactly. But the point here that seems to say is that whenever you would put something into the, how does it go? First you'd put into a Kedera, and then you would put into the Ilfis. Let's say, just for argument's sake, that Ilfis is a pan, a frying pan, let's say. And even when you fry something, first you'd cook a little bit. I'm just saying it's a possibility. That's what it sounds. I mean, nowadays we don't do it like this, Dafka. But if that was the minhag, that even when they put something into the Ilfis, first they would put it into the Kedera. So it says, if someone said, I'm answering myself on anything which is Yorod Kedera, which the Mishnah says it includes all kinds of foods, but the question is, this thing is also afterwards Yorod Ilfis. That in the cooking process, first you put it into a Kedera, a little bit, and then you put it into, and then you would prepare it in the Ilfis. Ilfis is the way you finish making it. So it includes Ma'aseh Ilfis because Shekva Yorod Kedera Kodem Yorod Ilfis, because it did. This food, even though you end up the second process, the second stage of making it is made in the Ilfis, but the first stage was made in the Kedera, so it's also called Yorod Kedera. But it's not
that the Ilfis is more to like crisp the top and
whatever you want to say is good. Whatever you want to say.
Because the Kedera usually means a whole boiled, it's like a whole pot roast.
Whatever you say, I'm okay with.
We don't mind.
When a Yorod Ilfis, more to Yorod Kedera. The opposite, if you say Yorod Ilfis, then you're allowed to eat. He's not also in Yorod Kedera because not the things that go into the Kedera and don't go into the Ilfis, they're not included. Because you might have thought that the word Ilfis and Kedera are interchangeable. I'm saying my own shot. What would you thought? If the Yorod Kedera doesn't go into the Ilfis, it's a kind of food You only make in the kedera and it's finished, and you put it, then you give it, you serve it already. It never goes into the ilfus. So what's the chiddush? So I'm saying a pshat that maybe the ilfus and the kedera you might have thought that they're interchangeable, that the words are interchangeable. And when he says a pot, a pan is all the same. No, a pan is a pan, a pot is a pot. The only reason why Yared the kedera includes my Yared the ilfus is because it didn't go into the kedera. It was made in the pot before it was made and finished being made in the ilfus.
And that's a complete cooking.
That's how you would make things they made in the ilfus. They would first make in the kedera. So when he says, "I'm mastering myself in Yorod kedera," it includes Yorod ilfus because it was in the kedera.
Right.
But the things that are in the kedera don't necessarily go into the ilfus. Whatever goes into the ilfus at first gone into the kedera. Whatever goes into the kedera doesn't necessarily goes into the ilfus. Next example, when a nasa b'kedera, it's going to contrast between nasa b'kedera and nasa b'ilfus. When a nasa b'kedera muta b'nasa b'ilfus, when a nasa b'ilfus muta b'nasa b'kedera, I would say the simple shot that there are two kinds of pots, and you might have thought that they're interchangeable. So it says no, nasa b'kedera means a kind of a food, whatever that kind of food is referring to. So that's not referring to it doesn't say whatever went into the kedera. It meant or nasa b'ilfus. Nasa b'kedera means that it's completed in the kedera. If it goes into the ilfus later on, they don't call it a ma'aser kedera. Before that says Yorod the kedera, so that meant that it went into the kedera. So even though later on that's only the first stage of cooking it, then you have to continue cooking it in the ilfus, but it was Yorod the kedera, so he included that also. But if he says nasa kedera, he means to say the thing which is completely made in the kedera and it doesn't go into the ilfus later on. So it will be mutar b'nasa b'ilfus, nasa b'ilfus, mutar b'nasa kedera. Again, each one means its own, and that's what the terminology is only referring to that kind of food, and it doesn't include other kind of food. And the last example over here. I know them in a Yorod Latano, ain't also relevant past. But remember, call them Maisatano alive, also call them Nasa Latano. In their time and place, when they said the thing that goes into the oven, Yorod Latano, they meant only bread, even though other things go into the tanner also. But their terminology of saying Yorod Latano referred only to bread. If they said call Maisatano, anything that goes into the oven is also. So everything, time and place, terminology, and by Nedarim, you go Achalosh and Bnei Adam. The next one is going to be, we could take an example for ourselves that everyone, even though until now this is not so understandable, maybe we don't live this kind of terminology, but this is a good example for us also. Mena kavush, ein asu el mena kavush el yaro. Kavush, shani toim, asu b'chol haklushin. So when someone says a pickle, what does he mean a pickle? When someone says a pickle nowadays, everyone says that it means pickled cucumber. That's what a pickle means. Even though pickle can mean a lot of things, could be pickled. You could have pickled meat. You could have pickled tomatoes. You could have all kinds of pickles. But this is the best example, I think, that nowadays that there's a certain term when you say pickle, you mean a certain kind of a pickle. So here it doesn't say exactly what we call a pickle, but it says if someone says hakovush, he's only referring to pickled vegetables. They don't mean when they said hakovush. But if they said kovush ani toim, that is also anything which is pickled, if it will be pickled meat, whatever it might be. And that is the hardest difference between the hey, hakovush and kovush. Hakovush means that particular thing which is the kovush, the pickled, like we would say today, a pickle, whatever, a pickle, the pickle, we only mean a certain kind of a pickle. In those days when they said hakovush, they meant pickled vegetables. If they would say kovush, then it means any kind of pickled thing, whatever is pickled. If it's pickled meat, it's pickled meat. And the word hakovush wouldn't have meant that. The pshat I said now is differentiating between the hey, hakovush, kovush, all the things coming up now, hasholuk, sholuk, hatzli, sli, hamaliach, maliach, these four cases. But in the Rishonim, they do talk about that. The Mishnah is a bit strange, that it says other words different besides the word hakovush and kovush. It says nodim and hakovush, or a fancy terminology of kovush shani toim. Why does it change the whole case? We had this in the beginning of the Mishnah also. The first Mishnah about Mavushal and Tavshil and Maisa Kedera and Yorod Kedera. It also says, first it says Hanoder, and then not only does it change the word Mavushal and Tavshil, it changes the whole thing about Konim Shani Toim. So there's a question in the Mefarshim if the distinction between the one which is particular or general is because of the hey. That's the pshat that I said. I think it's simpler. But they are bothered. How come the Mishnah changes the whole sentence that he said? Not only the one word, it changes the whole sentence. And some of us should learn that on the contrary, it's not the hey that's making a difference. It's the sentence. Did he say I'm no there, or that he said this thing chani toim? So there are two possibilities in the Mishnah. How to learn the Mishnah? The simple pshat I think is more if they said a hey or not. Did he say the covers? So we'll learn that way, and that's to point out that there's another pshat. So if he said hakovush, only means the pickled vegetables. If he said kovush, then he means any kind of pickled item. The next case, min hasholuk enu osem min hasholuk shel basar, sholuk shani toim masar b'chol hashlukim. The word sholok means something which is very cooked, like we call it sholent, that is cooked very long, many hours. So if he says hasholok, he's only referring to meat which was cooked, which was sholok. But if he says the word sholok, then he's referring to anything which is sholok, kol hashlukim, anything which was sholok. Okay, everything has to do with terminology, time and place. The next Gemara really will see right away that it goes on the next Mishnah also. And so maybe we'll just skip the Gemara for a second. These 3 lines we'll skip and come back to it in a second. The Mishnah continues. The word roast. Nowadays also is a good example. If somebody says, I'm making a roast, what does a roast mean? It only means meat. Everyone says, it's not, even though the word roast doesn't mean meat, but that's the way we talk. You say pickle, you mean a cucumber. And you say roast, you mean meat. And the Mishnah means the same thing. If you say hatzli, they also say datzli. Nowadays, even if you say plain, a roast, I'm also making a roast. There's no difference, hey or not. But in the Mishnah's time and place, there was a difference if he said the roast or roast. If he said min hatzli, then he's only ashar meat, Rabbi Yehuda says. We don't want to argue on that also, and they say that includes everything. But if he said sli, then it includes any kind of roasted thing. And the last one, min hamaliach ein asher el min hamaliach. I'm sorry, wait. Mistake over here. That's where it goes. Okay, there should be a period over there. Min hamaliach ein asher el b'maliach shel dag. Maliach shani tovim asher b'chol hamaluchim. Something which is salted. So if he says hamaliach, then it means that salted thing, a certain thing, which that's salted fish. But if he says maliach shani tovim without saying hamaliach, then it's us with anything which is salted. So we had 4 cases. We had kavush, sholok, sli, and maliach. And now we can learn the Gemara in between, which should have been printed afterwards. Amalei, Rav Acha, Bred, Rav Avi, Rav Ashi, Amar, Dikavish Mai, Disholok Mai, Disoli Mai, Dimoliach Mai, Hechen Mashma, Tiboi. If he didn't, he had 2 cases. We had hay without a hay. How about if he puts a dollar? The dollar in Hebrew would be like saying a shin. That. So you have a case of, let's say the first case of the pickle, the pickle, and then you have plain pickle, and then you have a question of that which is pickle. So that the Gemara leaves us a question. And all these different distinctions, ha-shaluk and shaluk. How about if he says sheshaluk? The Gemara uses the dollar. The dollar in Aramaic is like a shin in Hebrew. That which is. So if he says ha-kovush, it only means vegetables. Kovush means anything. How about dikovush? That which is pickle. Does he mean only vegetables, or does it mean anything? And the same thing by all these Mishnayos, by ha-shaluk and shaluk. What if he said that which is shaluk and sli, hatzli and sli? What if he said that which is sli, maliach and amaliach? Now, which all these things, the Gemara leaves a question. Hechen mashma, was it mashma, tiboy? I don't know. Like take it. The Gemara continues. The Mishnah continues. Dag dagim, shani toim, asa behen ben gedolim ben ktanim ben meluchim ben tfolim ben chayim ben mevushalim. Umuter b'tois trufa ubetzir. So here in the Pasuk Pshat and Mishnah, I think would mean dag or dagim. The term of dag or dagim, which in English doesn't make a difference because you say fish, and plural also is fish. If a person said fish, singular, or fish, plural, it includes big fish and small fish, salted fish, bland fish. The word tafel, where the taf means bland. Raw fish, cooked fish. It includes all those things. The word fish includes all these different kind of fishes. Mutter b'tar is trufa or b'tzir. So tar is trufa. Trufa means that it's smashed up like we do with tuna fish. We smash it up. The word tar, some even say means tuna. What's the pshat that the dafka tuna is not included in fish? Everything else. What?
People don't eat fish, but they eat tuna.
They don't eat fish, but they do eat tuna.
Yeah.
Why?
Not because they don't like fish. They don't like eating fish.
But tuna they do.
But tuna's in a can. It's different.
If it will be salmon in a can.
Maybe
Also, okay. So here they say, I heard a pshat, but Machavush said a pshat, that you say small and big. How big is big? So the Mishnah is saying that if it's a kind of a fish that's so big that you never eat it without smashing it. You don't take a slice. It's not served as a slice. Maybe that's the point. It's not served as a piece of fish, not a whole fish. On the plate, you're not going to get a whole fish. You're not going to get you'll get a slice of a fish sometimes. You're not going to get a slice of the fish either. You'll get only smashed up. That's what the Mishnah is referring to. It happens to be tuna. It's going to be a different kind of fish. But the point is that it's never served as a slice. Salmon, you could say, is also served as a slice. Even though it's a big fish, you don't put the whole salmon onto the person's plate. You maybe put it on the table sometimes. Maybe they're bigger fish than that. But a tuna is a kind of a fish that's you're never going to serve it without being. You don't serve.
They have tuna steaks.
They have tuna steaks also. Maybe that's what the Mishnah means. The Mishnah means trufa. And maybe Taurus is not going to be Taurus, which means tuna or some kind of a fish. Maybe it's lavdafka. The point is that it's trufa. I don't think it means that if you're going to take a regular fish and smash it up, that it doesn't mean that because it's also because he meant that fish. But this is only usually served as a smashed up, is that the way you say it, smashed? That's the way you'd say it. A better word. Ground. Okay. Mutter v'tzir over moya. I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah, and also tzir. Tzir means the brine. When he says fish, it doesn't mean brine. It just means fish. The fact that you take brine wouldn't be us. He didn't mean to answer that. There's a question coming up which I don't know the answer yet, and I don't know if I will find out. But if you take a fish, that's already usher. He asked the fish, so that fish is usher, and now he's going to take the brine out of it. However you do that, whatever the process is to get the brine, you salt it, whatever the case is going to be, how you get the brine out of it. Is the brine going to become mutter? But if I answered it, I answered the fish, and now they put the brine out of it. The Gemara is soon going to talk about the next Mishnah. Well, maybe we'll see it in a couple of minutes. That if something was usher because of a neder, and then the blias went into something else, it still could usher because once the thing was usher, it's like a piece of crepe. What? Perusah. It's worse than Paris. It's it itself. It's a bit of itself. Even though if there'd be already sear that was already extracted, there'd be brine that was already extracted from the fish. Maybe it doesn't mean to answer that. But if you answer the fish and the whole fish is us, and now they extracted the brine from it, maybe it would be us. I don't know. Maybe we'll hold on to the Mishnah coming up, and we'll go back to here. Okay. So for what does it say that the word dug or dugim? There are those that learned that he said dugim. He said that seems to be a bit docha. People don't talk that way, but you could they learn the possibility that means either he said dug or he said dugim, no difference. Dug or dugim, singular, plural. So it answers big and small, salted and bland, raw and cooked, but it does not include fish, which is usually eaten ground up or smashed up, and also is mutter and sear. Sear is the brine. Next case, this continues with still kinds of fish. Another menatzachna. Also, but there is trufa. Mutter b'tzir v'moria. Sachna already includes the ground up fish also. It's a term in English. I don't know if we have such a term that it refers specifically to ground up fish. So then is also in the there is trufa also. But he is mutter b'tzir v'moria. Tzir is going to mean again the brine. Morias. We had it. Someone wrote an article once upon a time that's what it's called nowadays also. Marias or something like that. I had an article someone brought in that maybe it's not called that today anymore, but it's some ancient word that they still have in English. That's also called, I forgot how I spelled it exactly. I think Yaman brought it in at the time. But it's also some kind of a brine. Not exactly, but there's a difference between sear and morias. But the fish doesn't include sear or morias, like I said before. The Bach was in before also morias, so before by the base, that's mutter b'taras true for sear over morias. But Sachna does include the ground up fish, but also does not include sear and morias. And then the next part of the Mishnah is the opposite. I know the Mataris Trufa. Now here the question is, what if it says Asr or Mutter? Some say Mutter, and this also. The Pashas maybe will be Mutter. That Taris Trufa, even if he says Beferish Taris Trufa, it also does not include Seir and Morais. Some say that it does. So some take out the whole Gersa in this word. It's not similar to the rest of the Mishnahs over here that I just spoke about. Say like different kinds of fish. Here, it's what it talks about a specific Taris Trufa. It could be aggressive. If it says Asr, it's a big Kiddush. The Pshat would have said more that it's Mutter. Even if he says Taris Trufa, also Mutter B'Tzeir V'Moyos. So what we have so far, we replaced this little Gemara here about Dikovish, Disholik, Disholik, Demoliv. We put it after the first half of the Mishnah, and then the second half of the Mishnah now talks about fish, Dag Dagim, in contrast to Tzachana. That Dag Dagim includes all kinds of fish, but not ground up fish. And Tzachana would even include ground up fish. Both of them don't include brine. If you have the Gersos at Taris Trufa, either it does or it does not include the brine. So again, it depends on the time and place and how we speak. And again, nowadays we gave examples of pickle and roast, something at least that we have in our language that also would include, but only include a specific kind. Pickle means a certain kind of pickle, and roast means a certain kind of a roast. And whatever place and language you refer to, that's the Akolol Chachalashim B'nei Adam. And the Kash is, why does the Mishnah say these specifics if it's subject to change? Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Dog Shani Toim, Osa B'Gdolim, Mutter B'Ktanim, Daga Shani Toim, Osa B'Ktanim, and Mutter B'Gdolim. He says that the word dog, there's a difference between dog and daga. Dog is only big, and daga is only small. Like we say nowadays, in Yiddish, you'd say fishalach. There's fish and there's fishalach. If the word means small, it means small. So the word dog, he says, means only big fish, and daga means only small fish. And each one would be mutter and the other one. If he says dog, he's mutter and small. If he says daga, he's mutter and big. If he says both of them, dog, daga, here it does mean that both of them. If he said dog and daga, then shani toim, then it's both. Also being dog because dog means big, daga means small. And the Gemara wants to know, how come you're so sure that dog means big and daga means small? Now the really question would only be lashon b'nei adam. Really, the Gemara is going to bring psukim. Now we had before already that the psukim is not the issue. We don't care if it's a pasuk. It depends how people talk. But the Gemara is going to bring some psukim over here. Amalei Papa Abaye. Yimai the dog shani tom gadolu. Tichseve iman Hashem dagado. The v'lo esiono. How do you know that the word dog means big? Because it says in the pasuk a big fish. Dagado. Obviously it was big over there as far as Yonah. But the pasuk calls it a big fish. And you think that daga means small. I'll show you a proof that daga also is big. And over there also was big. It was big enough that it's even the same fish. Right at this point, the Gemara thinks it's the same fish. We're going to say everyone knows a medrash, but the Pashup Shad is that it's the same fish. So you see that the word daga is the same thing as dug. How could you differentiate between dug and daga? The Pasuk says that's the same. The simple answer would be that lashon b'nei adam. All we care about is lashon b'nei adam. We don't care how it says it in the Torah. But the Gemara is going, like we said before, asmachta. Do you find in the pasuk that the pasuk differentiates? So he says no lakash. It could be that it's not the same fish. Maybe a big fish spat him out, and a small fish swallowed him up. Of course, it's also a big fish. It's also big enough to swallow a person, but it's smaller than the first one. The first one was huge, and the second one was smaller. Everyone knows the medrash about Zachar and Nekeva. That's the Gemara doesn't even bring down. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara just says that it was a different fish. Maybe it was smaller. So the Gemara still keeps to what Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, that a dog is a big fish and a dog is a small. But here it's going to mean pretty big also. But they're saying that it's smaller. That's interesting because when we're going to say a fish big enough to swallow a person, even if it's smaller than other fish, but it's still pretty big. And here we're saying that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that it means a small fish. That's a bit of a kasha still. Ella b'hadaga, not a kasha. B'hadaga asher b'yo mesa. It says over there by dam. It says that the fish died. Over there, it doesn't mean only the fish, the small fish died, all the fish died. Tana Mesa Gedolim Mesa, did the big fish not die in the Nile over there? So how could he say dog only means small? Again, you could answer that Lashon B'nei Adam. But the Gemara does say that. Ella dog mashma Gedolim, mashma Ktanim. Over an Adam, Lashon B'nei Adam. You're right. Takes it back. That the Torah doesn't have to mean that. The word dog, and you can even go back to the first thing also by Yonah. There's no reason to say that one fish spat him out and the other one swallowed him up and it was bigger, it was smaller. You can say it's the same fish. And the word daga means both big and small. And the reason why Shimon Elazar says daga is because Lashon B'nei Adam. First, the Gemara tried to fit it into the psukim, but we weren't successful because by Mitzrayim, surely it meant all kinds of fish died in the Or. So he says, you're right. And all of Shimon Elazar meant, it depends on Lashon B'nei Adam. And in his time and place, daga meant small fish. Another minat sachna. So what the Mishnah say that includes also ground up fish. It does not include the brine. How about the word sichin? Okay, depends on time and place what the word sichin means. Does it mean also ground up fish or not? Mighty boy, don't know. Take it. Next Mishnah. Another menachola mutabakum. Rabbi Yossi Oser. Kum is what we call whey. Whey. And that means the liquid part of the milk when you curdle it. When you make curd, when you make cheese, and you look into the cottage cheese, so you see the curds that's solidified and the milky part. That milky part is called whey. Maybe they could also even take out more of the concentrating myself on whey, menakum, then surely it's mutter to drink milk. Whey does not mean milk. Milk might include whey, but whey doesn't include milk. Again, the question is going to be what I asked before. I'm just holding on to a couple of lines further. if he asked himself milk, and then he took that milk, that he's also to have milk, he's also. If it was milk the next day, maybe you talk about it. But if it was already milk, it became asa. And now we made that milk into whey. Is it going to become mutter? Is it possible something which is asa? If you say a shvua, I'm not going to drink milk, and now he made a way out of it. So that's not what he said. But when he made a neder, we said that it takes effect. It becomes asa. It becomes a chaticha d'isur. It becomes a piece of issa. So now we took the sisser. It's like you're taking. There's going to be what are you going to say? Something that's usher, and you squeeze the juice out of it. Now that juice is going to become mutter. Like where did the issa go to?
But
So
he didn't say this milk. He said
what? But he said so. Us is all milk, does it not?
So how can it be mutter? How can it be mutter in whey?
That's what I'm asking. Again.
So obviously not.
Again, how could it become? How could something which is asa become what? If it's if I asked if when he said the there it was already whey, then it wouldn't bother me. He answered milk, he didn't answer whey. But if he answered milk, all the milk which is milk, what's going to become milk, so it becomes asa right away. And then we need to make whey out of it. So the issa is there, no?
Maybe it would only be usher if he says this milk.
What's the difference if he says this milk or he says all milk?
Because it's certain chal on something which didn't come.
But it does. When someone says I'm answering a milk on myself, so isn't he also now from all the milk that wasn't even produced yet? In another year, it's also going to be asa. So it is asa. So when it comes to be, it becomes asa. So then you make way out of it. As soon as it was milk, it was asa already. I don't
If you also
understand.
a chicken, then you also the egg that comes out of the chicken. See, I'm asking the chicken.
I mean, if you call chicken, if most people call chicken just meat.
No, but here, if my question is true, so that means that the chicken is asa. And now it came out. Now and then a couple of weeks later, the chicken, not that it was already an egg inside, it was produced, and the chicken now produced an egg. Is the egg going to become asa? That's what we said about Vlados saying. What did we talk about? Gidulean and what did we say? We said Gidulim and what were the two things over there? Perusain and Gidulim. And we said that it's the Vlados is off, that the Gidulim is asa. What was the question? Chilupain, Gidulein and Chilupain. Gidulein we said is asa. The question was only Chilupain, but Gidulein is for sure is asa, if I can remember correctly. So the egg should be Gidulein. If you ask the chicken, the gidulim, the egg should be awesome. If I'm remembering correctly. So here, if you took the milk, which is usher, and now you separated and you made, it should be usher. So what does it mean here that how could it be that the kumas mutter? The case before also, the case of the fish, you took brine out, you extracted brine out of the fish. How could it become mutter? And here you extracted the whey. How could it become mutter? I'm not getting something.
Because when you say chicken, you change the chicken. I'm really referring to the meat of the chicken, not egg.
But then the egg does become muscle.
No, they.
What does
No.
gidulim mean?
Huh?
Gidulim is also. Isn't it because it became from the Issa? It was born from the Issa?
I can hear that by fruit.
By gidulim. You answer the fruit, and the next generation, you answer the apples, and then the next generation of apples is also going to become asa because it was born from this fruit. The whole tree had a seed, and then the seed became a tree, and then the tree became. It's also asa also.
But when I say chicken, I'm really not referring to the live animal. I'm referring to chicken which I'm going to eat. So therefore, they wouldn't be.
That's what you answer. If you say I swear I'm not going to eat chicken, so then it's very good. I swear I'm not going to eat chicken. But I didn't swear I'm not going to eat the eggs. I didn't, even though I'm not. It's issa to eat it. But if you made it a chaticha d'isur, you made it a piece of issa. Like the Gemara says, it's meila b'kanambos. Like it's mamish.
It's the meat. It's the meat which I answered.
And now by carbon, if you can have a carbon, something which is hektish and it gave birth to it, the chicken became a birth to an egg. So it's gidul. I think it is asa. It is called. It is the issa is a result of it gave birth to something. I'm not clear yet. We're gonna have in a couple of lines. We're gonna have something about. Cooking it in the same pot. Once it was usher, it's going to become usher. Let's just see a little bit more. So far, the examples that are bothering, that I'm bothered by, is about the tzir, the brine before, and also this kum, this whey. If you say, one thing I would say maybe so far is that it only means the whey that's ready in the world. When he made the neder and he asked milk, so whey doesn't become usher. But if the milk became usher, then the whey you make out of it, I think might yes be usher. I don't understand.
I think he's trying to say that he's not going to have milk.
He's not, no, but that's not how he says it. That's like saying a shvur.
Milk is also on me. What kind
So,
of-
so,
what
so
kind
you
of
asked milk,
What
what
kind of
milk? Well, what
The
the
milk that I'm
game,
gonna drink.
right, but
The
no,
milk
but
that I can drink.
milk that he's gonna drink, what he did,
Drinkable milk.
so right now it's drinkable milk, did it become masa? There's on the table, it's now drinkable us, it became masa, now he goes to the company and he makes way out of it, how did it become masa? If it, the issue was hal on it, then I don't see how it gets off by separating it. Okay, the mission continues. Again, I know the malachol mutar b'kum. Rabbi Yossi Yosef. That's machlokes if the way is included. Menakum surely mutar b'chala. New point. Abba Shalom. I know the menagvina aser ba be'melucha utfeila. That if someone says he's asking himself on cheese, so that includes salted cheese and also bland cheese. Also, it should be really a tafel. We heard that the word tafel. We had before a couple of lines ago that the word tafel means bland. With a test, it means something which is not the secondary, but with a tough, it means that's a pasuk where it says the tafel. I felt tafel bli melach. Pasuk and Eov, I think. So tafel, and also modern Hebrew today also that tafel means bland, with a tough, not with a test. So the it says in the side over here, he changes it. I agree. The pasuk over here in Eov can be Shabbos pasuk tafel. Okay, always it means with a tough. So he changes the test is a mistake. So the Mefarshim say that Gvina usually was made with salt, salted cheese, and to make cheese without salting it was not usual.
You need the salt to dry it, to dry off the milk.
Mhm. And if somebody, it's possible to make without salt, but it's probably not the same quality or different method of making it.
And now then they have all the other stuff.
Different methods about it. So the Chiddush is that even if it's bland, also it's included in cheese. Interesting. Now they just to point out that different words changed in the time also. In the Gemara's time, the word gvina only meant what we call hard cheese, but we have cream cheese and cottage cheese. It wasn't called cheese in those days. But nowadays they do also. Some we said an example that what they call here gvina lavana, they would call that cream in America. They wouldn't call that cheese. And like sour cream, you don't here they call it gvina chamutza. That has to do with that. That would be the question of our Mishnah. What do you mean? When you say the word gvina, what do you include? In America, they say cheese, they don't mean cream. And here, when they say they do. So it depends on the time and place. But no, but Ashkenazim don't make Nedarim nowadays, so no, they've been a bossa. Mutter, they wrote to Kippah, Rabbi Dosa. Someone answered himself on meat. So Tanakama says that it's not eat gravy and kippah. Kippah means the bottom of the pot that has some pieces of meat over there, but you don't serve it as meat. It's just after you have a pot of meat cooking, so then the bottom is going to be full of thicker consistency, not just liquid, not just meat, whatever that's called. And in English, there probably is a word for it. Maybe in our scroll would probably say what the word is.
The gravy.
That's one. That's rotiv. What's kippah? There's two things: rotiv and kippah. Rotiv is the gravy that we understand, and kippah is something that's more. How do they say over here? Dak. It says in the top line over here. Kippah and the dak. So look there. Small pieces, not tiny pieces of meat that come to the bottom of the pot. So Tanakama says that's not called meat. Again, if you had a piece of meat and then you cooked it and there came pieces, let's see, that's going to be Abuda Osa. Abuda says no, that's also included. And Abuda wanted to prove himself that I'm right. I'm Abuda. Myself, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Tarfon said that even the eggs that I cooked together with the meat is also Aser. So Abuda saying for sure that one keepers Aser. Rabbi Tarfon said that even if you had meat which is Aser, someone asked himself on meat, and they cooked the meat together with eggs in the same pot, he said the eggs are also asa. So how could he say the gravy is mutter? Even the eggs are asa. Amulo, no. Of course that's true. Now we're getting to our subject that we were talking about. Of course he's right that the eggs are also asa. But Amos is man sheyoma shama bosa zelai. Yeah, he asked a certain piece of meat. Shano the menadoba when the sar v'achem yesh bo no same time. That's true. If you have a piece of meat which is asa and then it got mixed up with other things, so then if it gives no same time, if it gives flavor, which will be 60 till the 60th, till the 60th, not less than the 60th, then there's no time, but once it's Bachal B'Shishim. But if that's only because the thing was usher, and now it gave Tarobas, now it got mixed up, or it gave flavor into something, that's usher, because it was a Chaticha D'Isur, it's a piece of meat which is usher. But in our case, it's not so. So what does the Rebbe mean to say? And that's where I'm getting stuck now. What's the difference if he said Basar Zeralai, or he said all meat in the world is Asher? What's the difference if he said this meat or any meat? It should be the same thing. That if he said any meat is Asher, and now it got mixed, now it there's beliefs of it, it's gravy, gravy went into the eggs, again, she also be also. Is there a difference if he says this meat or all meat? I don't see the difference. If he means to say that when he said, I'm answering on myself meat, and there was already gravy, there's already gravy. So that gravy is mutter, because I didn't answer that, I only answered meat. But if he answered meat, and then gravy was extracted out of that meat, so why should it be mutter? So I'm stuck over here, I didn't see the Mefarshim yet. At this point, I don't know. The Mishnah says one more example of the same thing. Another min yayin with the betavshil sheish bo tam yayin. But omakonom yayin zeshani toing the nafal betavshil in yesh bo benoshim tam ereza also. If someone asks himself to drink wine, he does not include food that has wine in it. He never meant to answer that. Let's say at the time of the neder, make it the extreme simple case that he said, I'm answering wine, and in front of him there's a piece of whatever, there's a dish that has wine in it already. He didn't mean to answer that. He only meant wine in a cup, in a bottle. That's pure wine. He didn't mean the wine that's already mixed into a dish. But if he asked for a certain wine, and then that wine, and then that wine fell into a cooked food, it does become usher because it's no sin time. That wine is usher, it's usher wine. So my problem is, what's the difference if he says konim yain zeh or konim kol yain shebola? What's the difference? So hope that the Mefarshim speak about it.
There's a big round on the page.
He's saying, that's what he talks about.
I have no idea.
Okay,
Look,
so we have time till tomorrow. Yes, everybody, we're very early today, but okay, sometimes we go over time, sometimes we're under time.
Well, so you have to say that it's not, it doesn't, not all the meat becomes also when he asks.